Hey guys, Huck Sports Cards here. Glad you could tune in again today. Thanks for all the great comments on the last episode about the greatest players not in the Hall of Fame. Man, it was a lot of good comments. A lot of debate on whether Barry Bonds, Roger Clemens, Rodriguez, any of those guys should be in the Hall of Fame. There was a lot of good back and forth on that, and I really appreciate that. And that got me to thinking, so is the Baseball Hall of Fame still relevant today? And more importantly, is the Baseball Hall of Fame relevant to sports cards? And I want to answer those questions today. So is the Baseball Hall of Fame relevant today? And is it relevant about baseball cards? Well, the first answer I would say is the Baseball Hall of Fame relevant today? Yes, historically it is. It's a great place to go and see a lot of great artifacts and stuff like that about the game historically. But is it relevant? Does it have the best players in Major League Baseball in there? Well, I'm going to have to say no, it doesn't have the best baseball players in there. So Major League Baseball has had 20,000 players in that's played, and I think it might have been last year or early this year, the 20,000th player started to play for the first game they ever played. And there's 268 players in the Baseball Hall of Fame that played, the players. And so that's about 1%, a little over 1%. So let's just call these guys the 1%ers. So is the top 1% of players that have ever played the game in the Hall of Fame? Well, truthfully, the answer to that is no. I mean, Barry Bonds, he's the all-time home run hitter, okay? And he's fourth in WAR numbers, all right? And he's not in the Hall of Fame, okay? Alex Rodriguez, okay? He's 16th all-time on WAR numbers, but he's not in the Hall of Fame, okay? Pete Rose, he has more hits than anybody in Major League Baseball, and he's not in the Hall of Fame, okay? Roger Clemens has 7 Cy Young awards, more than any other pitcher, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. So does the Hall of Fame make up the top 1%? No, it actually doesn't, you know. And are there players in the Hall of Fame that aren't in the top 1%? Well, yes, there is. And I want to talk about that too. Okay, so let's talk about a player that's in the Hall of Fame that I believe should not be in the Hall of Fame, that he's not in the top 1%, and that is Harold Bains. So Harold Bains, let me give you some stats on Harold Bains. So Harold Bains' WAR numbers is 38.8. 38.8. Okay. The Baseball Writers Association, when those are the guys obviously that vote for people to get in the Hall of Fame, his highest number ever for that was 6.1%. So he didn't get in because of the Baseball Writers. He got in years later because of the Today's Game era committee. And just so happened, one of his head coaches, Tony La Russa, was on there, and one of the owners of the White Sox was on that committee, and they got some of the other guys to vote for him. So he ended up getting 12 out of the 16 votes that he needed to get the 75%, and that was the only reason why he made the Hall of Fame. So he shouldn't be on the Hall of Fame, okay? And the truth is that there's a lot of other people that should be in the Hall of Fame that aren't because of political reasons and stuff. And I want to talk about them now. All right, guys, I want to just do a little experiment here. So I'm going to tell you 2 different players, and I'm going to give you their stats. And I'm going to tell you at the end who's in the Hall of Fame and who's not, because one of them's in the Hall of Fame and one of them's not. So let's go with player A here. Okay, player A has 203 wins, 105 losses. Their ERA is 3.38. Their strikeouts is 2,117. They're an 8-time All-Star. They're a 2-time Cy Young Award winner. And their postseason record is 3-2 postseason. Okay, so that's player A. All right, so player B. Player B stats are 216 wins, 146 losses. The ERA is 3.46. Strikeouts is 3,116. 6-time All-Star, 3-time World Series champion, World Series MVP, National League Conference Series MVP. Their postseason record is 11-2. That's a win percentage of .846, and that's best among any pitchers that ever pitched more than or had more than 10 decisions in the postseason play. So who would you pick between those two? And let me just say this, that the guy that's in the Hall of Fame, I think should be in the Hall of Fame. So I'm not saying this guy shouldn't be. I'm saying this guy should be, but this other guy's record is better, I believe, and he's not in the Hall of Fame. And truthfully, it's because of political reasons. And I really believe that. Well, player B that's won 3 World Series with a postseason record of 11-2 is Curt Schilling. And why is Curt Schilling not in the Hall of Fame? Because the Baseball Writers Association didn't put him in because of his political beliefs. And that's my opinion, but it's a lot of people's opinion, that he should be in. I think his WAR number was like 79 or something like that, where player A is Roy Halladay, which I believe should be in the Hall of Fame, okay? But I think his Roy's WAR numbers are in the 60s, okay? So Curt Schilling has the numbers that are just as good, if not better, than Roy Halladay, and so he should be in the Hall of Fame. But he's not because the writers decided they didn't want to vote for him because of what he believes. So that's why I say the Baseball Hall of Fame, is not relevant for the best players in there, because the best players aren't in there. The top 1% are not in there. I mean, I just showed where Harold Bains is, to be honest with you, he's probably in the top 3% of players that have played Major League Baseball. But that's not what is in the Hall of Fame. It's really the top 1%, And I know a lot of people are going to say, well, you have Roger Clemens. You're talking about Roger Clemens, and you're talking about Barry Bonds. You're talking about A-Rod. Well, those guys did drugs, and they did PED, and so they shouldn't be in there. Well, my question for that is, okay, well, you have a guy that made it into the Hall of Fame this year, David Ortiz, okay? So David Ortiz tested positive in 2003, okay? So now a lot of people say he didn't test positive of PEDs, but he tested positive for something else, because they did a random test or whatever of a bunch of players in 2003. I think it was during the spring training, and he was one of them that tested positive. And so, he said later on that it wasn't for that, it was for something else, which may be true, may not be true. I don't know. You don't know, right? But it's funny how the player or how the writers gave him the benefit of the doubt, right? But they didn't give other guys the benefit of the doubts, which some of these guys that they're not voting for didn't have any positive test either and never admitted to do it. Now, A-Rod admitted to it, okay, and he did his punishment. And so, but you have people that like, okay, Ivan Rodriguez, okay, so there was speculation that he did, because he came back after they said, okay, we've drawn the line, and if you get caught doing this, you'll be suspended. Well, he comes back the following year, he's 30 pounds lighter. So now that he stopped taking steroids, I don't know. So I'm not sure if he did or not. Did he just try to get in, lose weight and get in the best shape of his life or whatever? I don't know. I'm not sure. But he got the benefit of the doubt on that. So, so that just, like I said, the top 1% of players are not in the Hall of Fame. And some players that are outside the 1% are in the Hall of Fame. So it's just kind of subjective of, how they vote, and they vote, whether they like you or not, in a sense, and it's not always by the numbers, where if they think that you're a good guy or something, like I said, Harold Bains got in and he had a 38 WAR number. Well, heck, Dave Parker has better numbers than that. Dave Concepcion has better numbers than that. Dwight Evans, but you never heard anything bad about Dwight Evans. But here he played right field and had, I think, 8 Gold Gloves. He might have had almost as many home runs as Harold Bains did. I'm not sure, but I think they both had close to 400, and they were right there close, if I'm not mistaken. But Dwight Evans isn't in there. So, but that's why I just say, yes, the Baseball Hall of Fame is relevant for the historical aspect of going in there and seeing stuff, but it's not relevant to having the best players in the Hall of Fame. But now I'm going to talk about how is it relevant to the sports cards. Hey guys, well, I appreciate you joining me today. Hey, this was part 1, and we're going to do a 2-part series on this thing. This part 2 is going to be about the Baseball Hall of Fame relevance to sports cards and how that affects the prices when guys get in the Hall of Fame. So that'll be part 2, and that'll be coming up here in a few days. But I appreciate you watching. I ask that you subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and hit that notification so you know when the next video is coming up. So, till next time, guys, we'll see you later.